only figures to celebrate Christmas Day with a Christmas movie, and The Muppet Christmas Carol seems to be a good one to talk about. It's so interesting that for so many younger people, this is their introduction to the classic Charles Dickens tale. I shouldn't see that as a bad thing, seeing how the Mickey Christmas Carol was my introduction to it. And truth be told, it's not a bad way to be introduced. Is it the best way? No, but I think it's still pretty reasonably well done. Ebenezer Scrooge, played by Michael Caine, is the town's most hated man. One of his workers, Bob Cratchit, played by Kermit the Frog, and yes, I know somebody else plays Kermit the Frog, but come on, work with me here, tries to get Christmas Day off to spend with his family. After Scrooge begrudgingly agrees, he's told that he's going to be haunted by 3 ghosts that night. The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. Each one shows him exactly that, the past, present, and future, and slowly over the course of the film, Scrooge starts to realize the importance of Christmas, the importance of being nice, and the importance of sharing his wealth with puppets half his size. The film is pretty by the book in following the original story. They have Gonzo and Rizzo as the narrators who constantly get beaten up throughout the entire movie. And all the other Muppet characters play the parts that we know from the book. The one that actually has me pissing my pants with laughter is Fozziwig. By God, I swear this whole movie was put together just so they could do that pun. On the whole, it's a decent film, especially when you look at the sets and the atmosphere and the colors. It's clear the focus of the movie was not to tell a great Muppet film, but rather a decent Christmas Carol. Now the downside is some might find that as a turnoff. As someone who loves the Muppet movie and the Muppet Caper and their early films, I really thought there was going to be a lot more humor to this. Like if you saw the Muppets do a Christmas Carol on, say, The Muppet Show, you know everything would go wrong. Their personalities would get in the way and it'd be all crazy and stuff will be blowing up and falling apart. But here, it's gotta be done more seriously. Which isn't a bad thing, I guess. It just doesn't feel that Muppet-ish half the time. But even that's made up for when they do something actually a little different from the story. Stuff that maybe other versions should consider putting in. One of my favorite additions is that the Ghost of Christmas Present has a bad memory. Why? Because he's always living in the present. So sometimes he'll repeat things, like he'll introduce himself twice or say a sentence he already said. That's a really clever idea. I also love the design of the Ghost of Christmas Past that's kind of a baby but kind of an adult too, is sort of ageless. But there are definitely some moments that are by no means terrible but can definitely be a little awkward. While the songs for the most part are pretty damn good, some of them almost sound a little too cleaned up. Like The Love Is Gone is sung almost a little too nice, you almost miss the emotion of it. And let's get to the part that's really gonna make you wanna kill me. I don't think Michael Caine is that great a Scrooge. You heard right, I don't think he's awful, but there are just so many moments where I feel like he's really just phoning it in. For example, what the fuck is this? It just cracks me up how weird it is. There's also some line deliveries that just feel lazy to me. Like look at this scene where he just sort of calls Bob Cratchit's name and it just sounds like really bad acting.
Mr. Scrooge. Bob Cratchit.
Does anyone else feel that was just kinda half-assed? But the biggest scene, and I mean quite literally the biggest scene, is when he's supposed to break down and change his ways. There's no big music, there's no big visuals for it. It all just relies on his performance. And I'm sorry, it doesn't deliver. I don't feel a thing for this guy.
Ebenezer Scrooge. I will live my life in the past, the present, and the future. I will not shut out the lessons the spirits have taught me.
I don't entirely blame him, as the staging and pacing in this scene is kinda weird too. But I think of all the other Scrooges and how I felt so bad for them, and they just made this such a huge scene, and here it's just a guy who looks like he's trying to be sad while saying some lines. But with all that said, I'd say only about half of the performance is not very good. There actually is a half that's pretty decent. And strangely enough, a lot of it's in the musical numbers. Michael Caine is not a very good singer, but he actually does put a lot of passion when he's doing the singing roles. He actually does feel very jubilant when he's singing the final song. And I really love the addition of having him sing a duet with the version of his past love. That's a great idea, and he does it very well. He also has the threatening look and stamina of a proper Scrooge, so I can't say he's terrible, because when he does something good, it is good. But for me, it's only about half the performance. I don't know, it could very well be that I love Christmas Carol so much and I love the character of Scrooge that I really hold them to a high standard. In fact, honestly, I can probably count on my one hand how many great Scrooges I think there really are that I've seen. But still, that's not what you're coming to see. You're coming to see the Muppets. And the Muppets do fine. Even though I don't feel like it's a traditional Muppet movie, I do kind of give it credit that it tried to do something really serious. They still address a lot of the dark stuff. They still kill off Tiny Tim. This could so easily be awkward and laughably done, but it's actually pretty legit. And yeah, like a lot of people, I watch it every year too. It's a strange combo, but a decent one. The kids will enjoy the puppets, the adults will enjoy the jokes, and the Christmas lovers will enjoy Christmas. Have a wonderful holiday and possibly pop this film in. Hey kids, feeling awkward because you're a teenager and you haven't had sex yet? Well, according to Disney, you should. At least, that's the lesson of Hocus Pocus, a movie starring Bette Midler as a leader of witches who were axed off years ago. But a boy and his sister bring them back to life by accidentally saying a spell, and now they're looking to take over the town and of course, run amok. With the help of a would-be girlfriend, a boy who was cursed to the body of a cat, and even a walking zombie, our heroes have to see if they can stop the witches in time. Okay, so I'm just gonna get to what I really fucking hate about this movie the most. It's strange obsession that if you're a teenager and you're a virgin, there's something wrong with you. Yeah, this is Disney. I mean, yeah, I know your whole sex is bad, but we're actually using sex to sell stuff is always kind of there, but oh my god, you're not supposed to be this insulting with it, or this direct. The main character in this movie admits that he hasn't had sex, and everybody, I mean freaking everybody, has a heart attack about it. It's practically the focus of the movie. Hell, even the finishing line centers around it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those prudes that thinks like teenagers should never talk about sex and they should all live in happy places where sex doesn't exist or weird shit like that, but this movie puts a lot of emphasis on if you haven't had sex yet, you're a loser and you should be made fun of, and this is the way the world works. Yeah, Disney has kind of turned into that big obnoxious bully at school. And it's such a weird thing for something like Disney to focus on. Every time it's brought up, I just feel kinda dirty. But taking that incredibly distracting element out of it, how is the rest of the movie? I don't know, it didn't do that much for me either. I mean, there are some creative elements, like the look of it is kinda neat, and there's some fun, goofy Halloween stuff going on. But it's just kind of a bland story that works into the typical fish out of water jokes. The main characters are bland, the side characters look neat, but don't really have that much of a personality either. The only thing that does stand out is the performances of the witches themselves. They don't have much to work with, but by God, they still work with it. These are three very funny ladies trying to make material that's not very funny into something that's funny. Just look at how quick they are, look at their facial expressions, look how big they get their eyes and mouths, and yeah, they're really having fun here. I guess on that level the film is kind of enjoyable, but again, I said they're not really given much to work with, and that still stands. As energetic and silly as they can make their performances, it still doesn't save a bad script. I don't care if you give them song sequences, I don't care if you have them ride vacuums, you're still not technically saying anything that's very funny. Which is a shame. I think this idea could have worked. I mean, these are three very funny actresses, and the idea of three witches now being resurrected in current time, that could be kind of fun. But a bland script makes it predictable and not very interesting, and all that virgin talk escalates into a series of uncomfortable, awkward moments. I just never quite got or understood it. It's one of the most bizarre focuses a movie has ever had in terms of Disney. So yeah, as you can tell, not a big fan. Even though I know these actresses are doing their best, it's still boring, it's still predictable, and it's still uneasy. I don't know, if you want the whole teen sex thing done in a much funnier, better way, I'd say either go watch a John Hughes film or Malcolm in the Middle. But personally, I would keep kids away from this like the plague. Seriously, what is your deal? Well, here's a first. I'm actually doing a re-review of a Disneycember I did, Hocus Pocus. As a lot of you know, when I saw this film, I really didn't like it. In fact, I downright hated it. To a point where people were asking for years for me to do a nostalgia critic of it. I finally did, I sat down, watched it again, and yeah, I still didn't like it, but I will admit it wasn't quite as bad as I remembered. The review is pretty obvious in what I'm trying to say, but if you wanted a more down-to-earth talk about it, I guess that's what this video is for. So let's address the things I didn't like about it originally. The big focus was the virgin talk. Everybody gave this kid such a hard time for him being a virgin. Hell, it's even the final line. I always remember that being a problem, and while it still is, I'll admit it's not as bad as I remember. Even when I did the movie review, I made a conscious effort not to mention it as many times as the movie does, which I think is something like 4 or 5 times. That's still weird, but yeah, it's wrong to say it's the focus of the entire film. I brought up how the witches don't have anything funny to say, and that's still true. But watching it again, I realize even though they really don't have anything funny to say, they still kinda say it in a funny way. These 3 actresses are actually really enjoyable. You kinda get the feeling they weren't given anything to work with, but they just said, screw it, we're gonna throw our all into every single moment we're on screen, and it shows. I get the feeling they sort of huddled together and talked about how they're gonna move and what each one is gonna do when the camera starts rolling. Does that excuse the bad writing? No, but it does kind of make it a little entertaining. These 3 are a lot of fun to watch. Now, does that excuse how incredibly bland the main characters are? No. Does that excuse how this story makes absolutely no sense whatsoever? No. Does that excuse a lot of really awkward, just downright stupid moments? Absolutely not. But over time, I am realizing more and more why this is getting a following, and that the correct terminology for it really is guilty pleasure. It's like my love for Ernest Saves Christmas. It is a stupid movie and nothing makes sense about it, but some things are just so good I can't help but watch it every year. Hocus Pocus I can now see is kind of the same way. There is a lot of Halloween in it, there are a lot of nice visuals. It's over the top and cartoony, but that just kind of makes it stand out even more. The song sequence with her singing is a lot of fun. A lot of the effects actually still kind of hold up. And even all those cliched 90s tropes, I think people are kind of laughing at how cliched they are now, and how you did see them just in every kids movie at the time. It doesn't mean it's by any means smart, but I can see how people can be really entertained by it. It's hard for me to say I actually enjoy it, but I do enjoy parts. Enough to at least finally see why other people enjoy it, and I think that's an important thing to understand. So I guess the conclusion of this re-review is, if you're really forgiving and just want to see some Halloween visuals, you'll probably be satisfied here. Or if you really like those classic 90s tropes and you just kind of want to have a laugh at them, you'll probably really like this too. I still really don't like those scenes where they address the whole weird virgin shaming, but like I said, it's not as focused on as I remember it. So maybe the majority of kids watch it will probably overlook that too and just be distracted by how entertaining the 3 witches are. I just felt like this movie deserved a second chance. Do I still like it? No, but I can understand why others like it. If this is something you watch every Halloween, I finally get it. I probably won't be joining the group, but I can at least say there are some really fun and weird things about it that you can get a few laughs at. I'll enjoy my incredibly silly, stupid guilty pleasures, and you can enjoy yours. Isn't the term based such a great word, as in, this is based on a true story? Cool Runnings definitely exploited that word when it was telling the story of Olympic Jamaicans who actually made it into a bobsledding competition. I get the feeling this film could have been a really dramatic, really fascinating story if it was done by like Touchstone or Paramount or something. But, because it's Disney, we gotta play up the goofy and funniness of these guys trying to make it in the Winter Olympics. And would the film have been better if it didn't deal with that corny point of view? Probably, but at the same time, I kinda like the corny point of view in this. Yeah, I'm really torn about this, because on the one hand, it is silly, and the Jamaicans are more like the Ninja Turtles and their personalities and how colorful and goofy they are. But at the same time, I kinda like the Ninja Turtles, and let's look at the story. A Jamaican wants to run in the Olympics, but when an accident happens, literally tripping him up, it looks like his chances are gone forever, until he finds out there's another way to get in through bobsledding. There's only two problems. One, they're in Jamaica and nobody can do bobsledding, and two, he doesn't even know what a bobsled is. But, as luck would have it, an old drunken bobsledder, played by John Candy, happens to be in the neighborhood. And they keep pestering him until he finally agrees that he'll try to train them. They get a team together, do their best to try and learn how to do it on hills without ice, and sure enough, John Candy says they're ready to go. When they get to the Olympics, of course, everybody laughs and mocks them and thinks they can't go anywhere. And at first, they don't. They start to choke. But then on the second go, they start to actually do a really good job and everybody is suddenly on their side. All building up to the final competition. As a kid, I love this movie. I love how goofy everybody does. I love how colorful they were. I love how they all had distinct personalities. I love how they had their own little backstories, like one wanted to live in Buckingham Palace, even though he wasn't aware it was Buckingham Palace. But as an adult, wait, one wanted to live in Buckingham Palace even though he didn't know it was Buckingham Palace? What? You got bullies in this movie that are played by the Germans, which, yeah, on the one hand is kind of funny and how silly it is, but on the other hand, really? The ending, which I won't give away, is actually a very heartfelt and inspiring ending, but yeah, even that goes a little too corny. It's just, I don't know, there's a very fine line of an audience that will like this movie. You have to be ready for that corniness. You have to be ready for the slow clap and the dramatic turn and the really corny, goofy moments with the really corny, goofy music playing. And, okay, let's say you're not a fan of that. Is there anything in this film that's redeemable? Well, once again, as with practically any role that he's in, John Candy is fantastic. Every time you see this guy on screen, you always shout, man, did he leave too soon? Why didn't we appreciate him more when he was around? He just took every role that he did so seriously, whether it was a comedy or a drama or something in between like this. He captures the pain and weight of a guy who cheated in the Olympics originally, but then wanted to come back. He wanted to do it because he felt it was right and he wanted to give other people a chance. He wanted to do it because that's what the Olympics are. And you hear that in every breath that he takes. But aside from that, is the film worth checking out? I guess it's sort of like Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. If you can accept that Disney is above the title and that the actual story it's based on is not going to be represented that well, you can still find a relatively entertaining movie, even if there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of corny Disneyisms. But to all the actors' credit, they do what they need to do pretty well. When they need to have the funny moments, they're pretty funny and over the top, and when they need to have the dramatic moments, they do that fine too. Are the side stories really forced and contrived? Yes. Did they probably not happen? Most likely. But you do get a lot of heart from these guys, and you can definitely feel it on screen. So, it's definitely a mixed bag. For me, the film is harmless, and allowed for some fun humor and even a few inspiring moments, even if they are really corny. It's kind of like those old 80s movies that you watch that you know are really hokey, but you can't help but enjoy because there's just so much passion behind it. I think it's sort of the same case here. I think that should give you a general idea if this is a film you're going to enjoy or not. And even though the silliness of it can be a little teeth-grinding at times, I can't find myself saying I didn't actually enjoy it. I did. I enjoy the cheesy lines, I enjoy the annoying one-liners, and I enjoy it because there's still a lot of heart behind it. Yeah, there's a lot of fault, but in my heartfelt, nostalgic mind, there's no problem, man. See, it's so corny it's even having me say lines like that.